Hey, I was originally going to make one long video talking about Charles Schwab, Fidelity, and Vanguard, but look, that is just a boring 30 minutes. So instead what I did is I chopped this into 3 pieces, and you can take a look at just the Charles Schwab portion here, and in fact, I'll just give you the quick highlights. Charles Schwab went to commission-free trading recently, which is great if you're just getting started investing, or even if you've been investing for a while. They have a lot of low-cost index funds, which is another good tool for investors. They also don't have account minimums, so it means that even if you're just getting started, you don't have to worry about coming up with $500 or $1,000 to open an account, and you can get started with 20 bucks if you want to. So check them out. Feel free to stick around for the rest of this video if you'd like to. There's a few things to be aware of with any brokerage, and I want to put those things in front of you guys. So thanks for watching, and if you so desire, feel free to stick around for the next 7 minutes. All right, guys, let's get started looking at Charles Schwab. So they will be going to 0 commission fees here very shortly, this coming Monday, which is fantastic news. I'm actually, I don't have a Charles Schwab account, but this is something that when they announced that, actually other brokerages started to follow suit as well. So even if you don't have a Charles Schwab account, I believe this also prompted E-Trade, I know, dropped their commission fees right after to $0, or will be as soon as the market opens on October 7th. So before we get too caught up in the excitement of not paying fees, let's move on to discussing a little bit about what Charles Schwab offers in terms of the different types of investments and the different types of accounts you can have. So they have a What We Offer tab up here, and I want to highlight the fact that they have retirement accounts, IRAs. They also have options for opening educational accounts, so a 529 account. We won't get into the details of that kind of stuff here, and we'll quickly take a glance at IRAs. They offer both traditional and Roth IRA accounts, and you can open and contribute to a mix of both. Within those accounts, or within a traditional brokerage account, they offer some really competitive funds as well. Let me jump over to that tab, and we'll just take a glance at some of the funds that they offer. So what I have pulled up here are their market cap index ETFs. ETFs are exchange traded funds. So a bit like a mutual fund, it's a collection of usually many of something. In the case of most of what I have on the screen here, it's a collection of stocks of many companies. So for example, this top one is stocks of the 1,000 largest companies in the US. It's not something that someone is going out and picking what they think is going to be the best investment. It's just they're saying, hey, let's take the 1,000 largest, we'll spread the money across those according to how large the companies are, and that's going to be the investment. It turns out doing that kind of investment, they call it passive investing, where you're just following an index, that actually performs really well. And part of it is that type of investing incurs really low fees. In this case, you can see that that fund's expense ratio is not even 0.1%. And that's fantastic. That means on $100 that you have invested with that fund, you're paying about 5 cents for a year. And that the fact that that fees have gotten that low is wonderful news for investors. It means that you can get really broad diversification right across 1,000 companies and still only pay fractions of a percent in terms of fees. So that's fantastic. The other thing is that's not the only ETF they offer, right? There's several on here. You have some options for international equity, and these are, again, this is just the Schwab funds that they have on their site. You can invest in funds from other companies as well. So if you needed to build a portfolio just out of these, you certainly could, and you wouldn't be shortchanging yourself, but you do have options beyond that. You can, of course, also purchase stocks as well. One of the great things about moving to zero commissions is that you can slowly build up an investment in a company. So maybe you have a little bit of money to invest each month. If you just want to buy a couple shares and slowly build up your portfolio, that is fantastic. It used to be that if you were paying something like a $10 commission, it wouldn't make sense to invest in small $50 or $100 increments. You'd need to accumulate a decent chunk of money and then invest that all in one shot. Here you can invest as you go, and that's fantastic for someone that has a long-term mindset and wants to get started with a little bit. Importantly, we'll also look at their pricing here as well. We talked about it with their commissions. They're going to $0 for it'll be stocks, as well as they mention here their Schwab funds. Important to note with fees, you also want to look with any brokerage to see if there's any opening or maintenance fees. Maintenance fees is the one that you'll sometimes see, or I should say more commonly see. It might be in the form of an annual or quarterly fee that you pay, particularly if your count is, if there's no active trades, that sort of thing. Charles Schwab is quite good on fees. And one other thing we should note, I believe there are fees. I don't see it here right on my screen here, but I believe that there are fees if you transfer out. Like if you transfer your entire stock portfolio to another brokerage, there is a fee for doing that. That's fairly common still. But in terms of the fees that you typically encounter through using your Charles Schwab account, they're quite good. One last thing I do want to mention, because just like I said in the Robinhood video, if someone's offering their service for free, you want to look at how they make their money. And something that I did not realize until I started digging in and doing some research is that a lot of companies, a lot of brokerages, they sell order flow just like we discussed with Robinhood. So that's where you place an order and that information gets sent to another firm, usually a high frequency trading firm that can maybe buy the shares ahead of you for just fractions of a penny less and then turn around and sell those shares to you. And it sounds kind of ridiculous, but that actually can be a lot of money for those firms. And Charles Schwab is a company that does sell order flow. So if we pull up their annual report, which I believe I have already open, let's take a look. So this would be their annual report, or 10K from 2018. Important to note, total revenue of Charles Schwab for 2018 was $10 billion. So that's like their total sales, if you will. Most of that is coming from interest revenue. So almost 6.7 billion in interest revenue. But if we scroll down a little bit, we get a little bit of detail on some of their other revenue. So here they'll highlight order flow revenue was 139 million during 2018. So again, that's a pretty significant amount of money. Granted, compared to the 10 billion in total revenue, it's not the bulk of how they're making their money, but you should be aware of that. I don't think it's a reason to abandon Charles Schwab or avoid them altogether. I think they are still very proactive in providing good value to the users of their platform, but it's something to be aware of. I would have no qualms about opening a Charles Schwab account. It's just something that you should know. So while Charles Schwab does sell order flow, that is actually a very common practice and something that I was actually unaware of until I started digging in to do this research. So turns out that E-Trade, TD Ameritrade, and a whole bunch of others all sell order flow as part of a way to pay for the platform that they're providing. So it's something to be aware of, but not something necessarily to freak out about. Charles Schwab still offers tremendous value for people that use their service. I do like the fact that their site is as informative as it is. There's a lot of tools there you can use to learn more about investing. And so I'd highly recommend it, and that's why they're on this list. So that was it. If you watched this part of the video, I commend you. I'm not really quite sure why you did, but hopefully you have a better sense of Charles Schwab's platform, and if you have questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Thanks for watching.